Well, Watsu, for me, when you say it's for me, it's many things. But for the public, a simple explanation is it's the world's first form of aquatic bodywork. Bodywork in the sense that, like massage and shiatsu, it can be used for therapy. It can be used for therapy as well as for sharing between people who are not professionals. I was teaching Zen Shiatsu at hot springs where there was a warm pool, and I started floating people in the water, applying the stretches and moves of Zen Shiatsu. In Zen Shiatsu, I had learned that when we stretch someone, it brings the energy to the surface. The stretches open the meridians and bring the energy to the surface. For me, Watsu is a way of being with others and being completely engaged, feeling my whole being is engaged. For people who receive Watsu, I feel it's a way they can access their whole being. Every part, every level of their being, they can access when they're receiving a Watsu. We've been told this by people who have received it. And the people that are holding, that are doing it, can engage every level of their being in doing it. And this creates a situation where by engaging every level of your being, you can continue to grow on different levels in the process. It becomes a path. For me, Watsu is a path of growth. And for me, and I'm encouraging many people to enter that path. It is also a path, a professional path, because much therapy can be done with Watsu. More and more uses of it. So what it provides for the one being held is that therapy and access to different levels of their being, and sometimes a great peace or relaxation. And what it provides for the person who is holding is the engagement of their whole being, to be able to be completely there with a person in the water. Part of this comes from the fact that we are floating people level with our heart center. On land, our movement comes from our body center. But when we have someone in the water, we are floating them right at our heart center. Right from the beginning, the first time I started floating people, I felt something that I called a heart ramp, which is what I felt coming from my own heart and holding them like this. And in the beginning, I was amazed at how much oneness I could feel with whoever I had in my arms, with people I would not have thought that I had that oneness with until now. I'm not surprised any longer because it's always there. And but that was part of the learning that came to me from the Watsu, and I see others learning from it too in sharing Watsu with others. And the next thing also about being in the water, the movement that we engage our heart center as much as our body center, also being in the water, we have people floating on our arms and become very sensitive to their breathing because they get lighter, because as they breathe in their buoyancy, they rise up and get lighter. And if we just drop into the emptiness at the bottom of the breath and do nothing, our breath is drawn up as they get lighter on our arm. And this creates an engagement that is very deep, and it's longer lasting than if we try to synchronize our breathing by watching their breath, which is a separation because we are watching them. But this is an engagement that comes from our breathing being brought up by their breathing. And it lasts throughout the engagement. The connection will last throughout the session, even if when they stop breathing or we're doing movements that aren't to that breath. It's still, the engagement is established at the beginning. And throughout my life, I've had really powerful experiences in which light was engaged. And in my earlier life as a poet, I often felt when I was writing poetry, when I was coming from nowhere, that it was light itself that was writing it. And I had other experiences in which I felt that light. And I'd had experiences with energy before I ever started Watsu, in my own body, in my body's movement and waves. And in fact, it was before I started Watsu when someone floated me in the water one time, and I felt what I call a body wave, my whole body going into a wave. And I stood up and I felt I was just rising up into a light that was shining out to all sides. At that moment, I felt I wanted to help to bring other people to that experience. And that was one of the reasons I started Watsu. And it was after that that I started taking people into the pool and stretching them and that. And that light, often when I go into free flow, where the movement comes by itself and I'm not planning anything at all, there is a lot of light in the pool. I feel there's a lot of light. And of course Watsu happens in water. And there's two things particularly, I think, important about the water. We have to hold the person. We can't, at least now some people are putting a lot of floats on people and they got to push them away. But at the beginning we didn't have floats on people. And in Watsu we still hold them close. And people, when they are held, they have reached another level of healing that's beyond just touch. Touch is a level of healing, but holding is another level. And if a child falls on the floor, the mother doesn't reach over and touch it, but the mother picks it up and holds it. And this is the oldest form of healing. And this we participate in Watsu, very much, the holding, and we feel our own being able to hold unconditionally is a big growth feature for the one who's holding, or factor in their growth. The other thing is the quality of water, the nature of water, how much it allows movement. And it allows us to move in ways that our whole body is engaged in the movement. When we step into the water, we're supported by the water from all sides, not just the ground under us, but the water supports us. So when part of our body goes out in one direction, another part is always balancing it off in the other. So there's always this balancing that's going on in the water. And when movement starts, it can continue on its own, what we call a continuum, continues. And it's become, so the two features in Watsu, the connection with the breath, I mentioned the water breath dance, when we first connect to the breath, and we have breath-timed moves that follow the breath and are very important, and the stretches are usually timed to those moves, which is very important. But we also have moments in which we go into a freer movement, which is not dominated by a rhythm, a regular step, repeated rhythm, which you call a continuum. And the combination of the two is very important, and it's what the water allows us. Having seen the benefits that come to people, even the first time they pick up and float someone, I've wanted to bring those benefits to as many people as possible, of unconditional holding and the engagement of their whole being. And but in the early years, all the focus in Watsu was on making it available to people who needed it in clinics and spas, and preparing practitioners and instructors. And I call that the vertical dimension. And after years, it's finally been achieved. We have a very good registry of practitioners and instructors, and it's well on its way. So my attention in the last few years has returned to what the person who first picks up and holds someone in the water feels and what they can continue to develop from that point. So I call that the horizontal dimension. At first, I went into the horizontal dimension in the water developing a new basic Watsu, which included the continuum and the basic breath moves in a very easy manner that people could share with family and friends. And in our Watsu classes, we had always used threes, groups of threes, a triad in learning the difficult moves. And so I developed another path on the horizontal dimension where people could come in threes and help each other learn and share. And this, on this path, also at the same year I developed Watsu, I wanted to bring the unconditional holding and the engagement back onto the land, and I developed Tansu, which at the beginning was a bodywork with many different positions that could be combined with Zen Shiatsu, and practitioners could. And it's, with the way it's been combined, it's still in practice. It's going very well. And then later I developed a form of Tansu for couples, and then found that one position was a position that wasn't just for couples, but was for everybody. Everybody could hold in this one position. And in the first hold in this one position, they connect to the breath the same way we do in the water breath dance in water. And I heard that yoga means union, and I realized what we had in this one position was not body work, not doing something to someone, but different holds in which we could continue to celebrate union. So I developed Tansu Yoga, and then I brought in the work with threes, which I had been using on the explorer path in water, and developed the flower rounds, which are now part of what I call the lotus circles, which brings the engagement of water that we have from Watsu onto land, and now in a form that can be shared everywhere. And so most of my attention is now on how to get that out everywhere, so people can have that engagement, have that union, have that the unconditional holding of others. Like that. In developing the lotus circle, I found that at the end of it, we can come to the same point that I feel sometimes in Watsu, which is the light that I feel in Watsu. And so I have now at the end of the lotus, well, let's see.
Okay.
I am finding now in the work with the lotus circle the same light that I have found in the Watsu. And I feel there is now something really important about getting this out to people. To get this out to as many people as possible, I'm putting all the instructions on how people can start their own lotus circles, how they can bring others into it, train others, and start gatherings where they meet. All of this can now be downloaded from tansuyoga.com, and I'm hoping it to go. We're translating, and anybody that wants to help translate, we want it to go all around the world.